I'm Jim Smith. I'm the CEO and broker of a company called the Property Management Company. I'm here at IMN because it's an opportunity to learn from the people that are also in this business, to find out what's new in the trade show. And the presentations, the panels are a wonderful way of learning of not only what's new, but also the actual application of what people are looking at and where the industry, where our profession is going.
I'm Nicholas Jacobson with Vendoroo here at the IMN with Jim Smith with the Property Management Company. Jim, what brings you to IMN?
I'm a student of life, and I love coming to the conferences because it gives me three things. Number one, it gives me an opportunity to sit in on the presentations because I don't pretend to, even though I've been doing this for 40 years, I'm always learning new things. Number two, oddly enough, it's just the networking with people that I've known off and on throughout the years and meeting new people and finding out how they're doing things. The innovations that we run across is, well, I'll put it this way. I joke around and say I learn far more out in the lobby or at the bar from everybody who's actually utilizing the different tools. And that gives me a chance to see it in place. And then number three is actually the vendors. Giving me a chance, this gives me the one-to-one time to be able to go and talk to the vendors, find out what's new, what's out there, what changes may have happened. And it gives me a chance to schedule times where I can have better one-to-one times when I'm back at the office in my environment, so I can give 100% of my attention to find out what they've got, see if it works for me.
Great. No, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to do that. You were telling me a little bit about the innovative program that you've been working on. Why don't you tell me what is that again, and tell me a little bit about it?
Sure, it has to do with tenants when they're making application. A lot of times, I find that most companies, the tenant either qualifies or they don't. We categorize potential residents into one of three categories. They're either an A, B, or C. An A meets all of our qualifications, not a problem. We will rent the property out based on the criteria of whatever it is that we are offering that property for. A C resident, I joke around and say they're the ones that I recommend my competitors. They just don't qualify and they never will.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are in between. And what I find is, especially when we are in a market change, a lot of people just they don't meet our primary qualifications. So a few years ago, I created this thing called the Second Chance Program. And the Second Chance Program is somebody where they don't meet our primary criteria. However, we will work with them. And the 50,000 foot view is if they are willing to put more skin in the game, then we are willing to take the higher risk resident. And what that typically is going to mean is it's going to require additional security deposit. This is Texas. We don't have limits on our security deposit. So we can charge 2, 3, 4 times a month's rent if necessary, equal as far as the security deposit goes. We can do monthly risk mitigation charges if we need to do that. We can certainly ask for, and most often do ask for, a person to be a co-signer. We don't do a lease guarantee. We actually have them co-sign on the lease because Texas has certain rules about how guarantees, and I'm not going to get into that, but a guarantee is only good for 1 year. You have to go in and get a whole new one with that guarantor to be able to do that again. Whereas if they are a co-signature, then they're automatically going to be renewing. If they don't, then the resident has to go through a whole application process again. And what that does is it allows the residents to be able to move in. They're a higher risk resident, but we have more money that we can talk to the landlord about and say, this is the reason why we took the risk. Because now instead of having a $2,200 deposit, we may have a $5,000 deposit. And we have a risk mitigation that we personally, even though it comes to our company, we put that in reserve so we can help offset any legal expense that we may incur if we have to evict them. So it's a win-win for all the parties that are involved. One thing that was an unintended consequence that we found by all this is that, ironically, our residents who are in the Second Chance Program oftentimes are our best residents. Because not only do they know they have more money that they put to get into it, they have more money to lose. But we also, one of the services we provide is a positive credit reporting aspect. And it helps them build their credit up. And if they get to a point where they come to us and say, hey, our credit scores are now 100 points higher, 150 points higher, and we'll say, all right, if you want to reapply, we'll run through and rerun your credit background. And if indeed your credit background is back up to where it needs to be, then those monthly mitigation fees and everything else are going to go away. And so you'll be able to come back in as a regular tenant. We will, on a case-by-case basis, consider not necessarily refunding a deposit back to the tenant, but we will apply it towards rent, maybe at the end of their renewal lease.
That is a beautiful program. That's very much in line with our mindset here at Vendoroo, where we are shifting from a resident experience focus to more of a focus on the owner experience and bringing the resident along for the ride.
Yes.
So I love where you're going with that. We do something very similar in the realm of maintenance, and one of the things we're providing for property managers is being able to go from being forced into hiring the team that you need to support the business to having the partners that you want, which is it's a powerful statement. And there's a lot of manual work being done in maintenance today. So that's where we see ourselves, and it's following the same mindset of really shifting into how do we bridge the gap between the focus on resident experience and kind of ignoring the owners to taking care of the owners, making sure that the owners are understanding the risks, understanding what's going on between, and being brought along and shown as the decisions are being made rather than being told about it after the fact.
I find a lot of people in our industry, they forget that our fiduciary is with the owner. That means that the tenant is our customer. They're not the client. Unfortunately, a lot of people have a tendency to be emotional. They don't realize they need to take the emotions out of the equation. They get emotional with the tenant because the tenant is the one that they're talking to. The tenant is the one that's squawking, making the noise about whatever the issue may be. And so they have a tendency to do things with or for the tenant that oftentimes is in violation of the lease itself, and in reality, violations of the fiduciary they have with the client. We explain to landlords right up front that when you come with us as part of our portfolio, we understand and recognize the fiduciary relationship that we have. We also explain the responsibility to our residents that they are the customer. Now, I am not a believer that the customer is always right. Oftentimes the customer is wrong. But what we do is called education. We educate the resident when they move in, and then if an issue comes up, we remind them about what the provisions are in the lease, and we give them options. I learned a long time ago, people don't like to have to make choices, but they like to be able to have, they don't like to make decisions, but they like to make choices. They want to have options of what they can do. And so when it comes to maintenance, that's a big issue. That's a big thing. We want to make sure that they understand that I'm sorry that something is not working properly. Yes, that is a mechanical failure. That is the landlord expense. Or it could be something that the tenant did due to negligence, either intentional or not, but the tenant is responsible, and we work with them and they understand fully that that is a pass-through expense to the resident, but we give them options of how they want to handle that pass-through expense. And so having a company like yours will allow us to be more effective and more efficient in getting things done and better identifying. Of course, it's all the documentation that will back stuff up.
Wonderful. So I just have one last question for you. It's kind of a double-sided question. So where do you see gaps in the market today as far as things that are being done overly manually, or things that you just don't think that we've solved those problems yet? And how do you see technology overcoming them?
Real estate in general and property management, more specific, since that's what we're here talking about, we are a low-tech service provider utilizing high-tech tools. And what I see is the conflict in melding those two together and trying to find a happy medium. AI is the big buzz. It's been the big buzz for the last couple of years. We'll probably get a lot larger. The challenge with AI is it's garbage in, garbage out. It's operational it's based on who designed it, who put the information in, and it's still a learning process. You need to have the human aspect to be able to make sure that everything is flowing properly. So I would love to have the idea that I can have everything automated and I could disappear and be on my sailboat or be somewhere in the mountains and not have to worry about anything for months at a time. Well, that's not going to happen. You still have to have live bodies in place. So whether that's I have my staff that's there doing it, or we have somebody like you that has somebody trained to deal with the specific things regarding maintenance, that aspect has to be there. So being fully automated is not there yet. Still have to have that human place in there. I think one of the gaps is people are either unwilling to let go of wanting to have full 100% control of hands-on with each thing they're doing, versus those on the other side of the bell curve that say we want to have automation of everything. And it's a matter of all of us learning how to adapt to different technology and how we can put it into play with our particular systems that we have set up with each company that's out there. But it's evolving. Technology. I look around anytime I come to these shows, and I like to spend a lot of time at the vendor trade show because every year there's some kind of new technology or new way of doing something more innovative or something that's just we've never seen before. 5 years ago, there would be nobody here that does AI for maintenance. There was the benefit that we provide both for tenants and the benefits we provide for owners. That basically was rare to see that type of thing. And as these conferences come along, we see that developing out. That's wonderful. But the big gap, go back to your question, is you have people they're chasing the shiny object. You say somebody's got some fancy thing and they haven't really troubleshot the process to make sure that the process coexists with not only the company, but the company's policy and your regulatory bodies of wherever it is that you're working at. Got to make sure it's all there and set up and ready to go. For example, the second chance program that I talked about, you can't do in some states because they have limits on the security deposits. But it's something that here in Texas we can do.
Very insightful. Thank you so much for your time, Jim.
My
I really
pleasure.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
conversation.